Hi, Erica. So I'm finally doing the website review. It took me a while this month, but well, it's summer for us. Anyway, let's get started. I don't have a lot of stuff to point out. I also feel like generally product-based websites are a little bit simpler in that way because like there's not so much explaining of it. But yeah, there's a couple of things I really loved, and then others that I feel like could potentially get improved. So I'm just gonna go through all of those. And let's start with the homepage. First thing is like I absolutely love your logo. I feel like it's you can tell it's handmade because like there's a little bit of like organic shape to it, but it also feels like really slick and like really professional. So it's like I think like this is a really nice logo for you. I also like the fonts that you chose. I feel like they're very like understated. Like here we can see, and I just really like that the combination in general. I did feel like overall your brand could lean a little bit more towards your ethos, like you really care about sustainability and connection with nature and the responsibility that we hold, and also community. There are just so many values that you hold through your brand, and I feel like in terms of design that doesn't come across. Like we really need to go to your website, and in this case I'm going to like really, as I'm going to talk about, really need to like dig through your website to find all of those. So yeah, I think in terms of design that could come through in other ways, and not just color palette but also like use of maybe like some textures and like nature images and things like that. And you know, there's a whole world of where your brand design could be, but just in general, I do feel like it could come across a bit more of the echoes behind Lumenrose. I think that's the name. How you say it. So the first thing we see is the hero section. This is called the hero section. It's basically like when you land on the website, the first thing you see is the hero. And I do that. There's just a couple of things. So in terms of like the slideshow, that's something that used to be very popular a while ago, but it has shown to be ineffective because the information is constantly changing. We don't really like sink into what's being shown. So it's, yeah, I usually go away from slideshows and the hero in this section unless there's a very particular reason to it. And I also feel like the text is like really big, like so it's all caps and it's quite big, so it's a little bit difficult to like read and just sit with it. But that might be because of the slideshow effect, because like I got in and it was constantly changing, so it was just a lot going on and it was difficult like to seek into all of the information. But otherwise I think the copy itself is quite good. I think it just shows why your jewelry is different. And also I feel like the lifestyle, the photos that you chose, I think it's beautiful that it is in nature, and I think that's like 100%. But it just feels like it's all very about the jewelry and not the life that goes with this jewelry. Because like that's what your brand stands for, is like the kind of community that your brand belongs to, the kind of people and houses and families that it's a part of. So I think showing like just a person or something like that and not just hands could be nice. But anyway, I do like the photo. It's just like here's more of like a suggestion to see if it would be a bit more impactful. We do tend to relate more to photos where we see actual people, even though their hands is not really the same. So just that little note. And then what I started to write here. So I'm looking below because I have my phone with the notes. What I started to write was like how I feel like the sections could go for the homepage, because I feel like as we get here, usually people like start scrolling, like just one image is a bit ineffective because like it doesn't really tell me if I'm in the right place. So that was the first thing, like the copy for people know they're on the right place, in a nice lifestyle photo so we can get the feeling of the brand. And then as we go here, I'm glad you're here, and then a huge photo that, because it's so big and it takes up to scroll, it feels like it's a bit accidental. So it doesn't really breathe like this. We definitely wanted to put a huge photo here. So it feels a little bit like this wasn't very well thought of, even though it might have been. And then your message. And I think it's like there's no title here. So like I don't really know. I can tell that it's a message from you because EXO Erica, but that's because I know your name. Someone landing here, they probably don't know. So they might confuse this with, is this a testimonial? And I do feel like overall on copy, overall on your website, like I feel like paying more attention to like creating titles for things, I think would be generally good, so that from the title I can tell what type of information this is, so I'm better informed before reading. And not just that, but like the fact that I don't know what this text is about is less likely that I'm going to read it at all, because it's going to take my time and energy, and I don't know if it's worth it. So a good title, like a message from the founder or something like that, it could be nicer, but just so I know what this is about. But what I did wanted to start with was that there's a lot going on before we even get into your jewelry. And this is not even the actual products, it's just a collection. So you don't have any products here on the homepage, which I think it might have been intentional, because that's what typically product-based businesses do. You've probably seen other jewelry stores, so you know, like usually the first thing that you do is just like put up the jewelries. And I don't know if you went to a different direction because you wanted to, for people to understand that your business is so much more than jewelry. But I don't think that that's coming across either, because there's not too much about it. It's just like you're putting a lot of space for photos, and not enough for us to really know, like get engaged with the product or the ethos of your brand. Because this, again, without any title or anything, and even if it was like a message from the founder, that doesn't tell me anything about your ethos. I really need to read. And if we rely on people to read like a whole chunk of text for them to have even a glimpse of what this is about, we're probably gonna miss on that, because it's unlikely to happen. And we know our life is a rush. We look through things. So I'd say that maybe like rely maybe on this section to talk a little bit about your ethos, which you already have with at least like one slideshow that you have here. I think this one. And then I would go directly to products, like highlight your products, either like the latest ones, the ones, I mean, on sale. I don't love it unless like your sale is like very occasionally, then okay, you could highlight that. But like showing the ones on sale it just feels like your brand, it just cheapens your brand. So either highlight the newest editions or the best sellers, or like the ones that you love the most and you just really want to promote them. It could even be just like 4 or 6 products, but actual products and not the collection. So people can immediately engage with what you're selling and like understand what's in their reach. Like, I can actually buy a piece of jewelry here. And I know that maybe you want to like bring your ethos across before you're showing product. But there's one thing that I'm seeing a lot through the last reviews that I'm doing is like there's a bit of confusion overall when we go to websites. So like, I don't know if I'm the right place. I don't know what this person is selling. I don't know if they're even selling anything. So it's really important to make sure that the first few things that we do when people land on our website is that we tell them they're exactly in the right place and show them exactly what they're looking for, so that we just like clear that up. This is what Lumenrose is about. Here are the products, and then we can continue and dive into something else. Because if people, it's likely that your audience cares more deeply about your brand than just the products, and they'll get there if you just give them a chance to like land on exactly what they were looking for. So I would definitely put the products in here, like a couple of them. Yeah, exactly. And then I think it would be nice to have your message with a title, maybe a title that indicates what the message is about. I'd have to read this too. Like, could be like the power of simplicity or something like that. So that the title itself shows a little bit of what the text, not just the subject, but also a little bit of what's already inside of it. So like from the title, we can already get interested by the content itself. And maybe you could do, since it's a message from you, I think it'd be nice to be like an actual photo of you. in nature, in your studio, whatever. I think in your studio could be nice, because then we can really like connect with you while we're working and have it side by side instead of having like this big images that just feel like we're just scrolling through things and we're not really getting any information. So I would give like half the photo, whatever it might be that you choose, and then half the text, so you can really get like the whole experience of seeing a place and seeing the message from the person who's in that place, you know. And then I would skip to this CTA, like elegant and empowering, maybe even show something more about like the ethos. Maybe the title could be a little bit more about the ethos of your brand and not just something that feels a bit like what any jewelry brand could say. And then I would go to show the collections of your brand. I would even maybe like before this explore the collections, I would even add some section about sustainability or the organizations that I'm going to say work with, but I think you give out part of your profits. So you could go from like product and then message from the founder to then talking about maybe like sustainability factor, to then maybe going to like the explore the collections, or like the CTA first and then explore the collections. And here in the collections, I would definitely add all of the collections instead of view all, because this feels a bit like I need to click here on a button to then see all the collections and then click on the collections and then see products. So it's just like a long trail of work when you could just show the rest of the collection, because there aren't that many. I think maybe you'll have like another raw or something like that, and just show all of the collections so I can see like the whole ecosystem that goes inside your brand. And definitely have different images for them, like these two have same image, which maybe this earring is latest work, but still try to have slightly different one. And like here, this is a necklace and you only see like the pendant, which doesn't feel very inspiring for someone who is looking for a necklace, because this could look like a ring. So also like take into consideration, and maybe it would even be interesting to use more lifestyle photos for the category, something like this, instead of like a product shot, because it feels a little bit more barren and a bit more about that product specific than the category itself. So that's what I wanted to add there. I do love the photos that you have. I feel like they're I can really feel like the artist behind it, and I think that's really cool. So I know that's something that you mentioned that you're really proud of that side, and I think they're really beautiful. So I think it's just more about like utilizing them. And then it could be interesting to have the newsletter, which I think like it's too up on the page, especially because you don't really have an incentive. If you have some sort of incentive that you were giving out to people to subscribe to the newsletter, because I know you want to have more people on your list, on your email list. So it does make sense to highlight it, but without an incentive, it just feels a bit like I am not ready to subscribe to the email newsletter. Like I haven't even seen your products, so I'm not ready at this stage to subscribe, especially if it's just to get news and nothing else. And if you are interested in getting more people on your email list, you know this probably because all the product-based business do that, like offer an incentive, like 10% discount is a very typical one. But if you don't want to go down that road, which given the way that you source your materials and the pricing of your products, you're probably, I don't want to judge, but you might not be working with like a huge profit margin, because I've met other jewelers who try to be as ethical as possible, and it's really difficult financial to go down that road. So maybe offering a discount might be a disservice for you, and also the people to have a wrong perception of how easy it is, or it really isn't, to make discounts on these products. But you could even have like a guide on like how to take care of your jewelry. And I do see that you have a page somewhere here, jewelry care, but you could even have a guide where you go a little bit deeper than that, of like day-to-day things, things that you do every now and then. I don't really know how deep you can get into the subject. It could just be maybe something a little bit prettier. I don't really know. But it could be something that you offer in terms of like information or something like that, instead of just being a discount, which a lot of product businesses do. And if you do go down that road, I would definitely highlight that. And even use a pop-up. I do see that you have this, which is technically a pop-up, but I feel like it's missed very easily. I only noticed it existed when I was going to the footer, like looking at the footer, and I'm like, oh, there's more of this information. So like this is very easy to miss, which is not the point of the pop-up. The point of the pop-up is exactly so people don't miss it. And also there's another page, I don't remember, but there's a particular page, I think it was a product page, where this feels a bit disruptive because this is on top of some information. So I would choose a pop-up, but like those that like really like in the center of your screen. And I know because I've struggled with that one because like it feels annoying when I go to people's website, but they are effective. And I speak for myself where I have subscribed when I'm interested in a product like or anything. I tend to subscribe directly because like it's the easiest way for me to engage further with a brand. And on the side of like data and things like that, pop-ups are generally effective for people to sign up. So if people are signing up, it's because they care and they are maybe more useful than disruptive than we think, but that would be my advice. And then you could have the blog posts and then the Instagram. And then on the footer, I think it could be nice to have your logo again, because we only see it once at the top. So it'd be nice to see it again and like, just like bring again like the name of your brand and just like really bring it into our minds, and maybe a bit of a statement. This could be a really nice place where you can just like insist a bit more on the ethos of your brand and just have a statement like what it is, who is it for, and what it stands for. Just like it doesn't need to be huge, like a small paragraph, which it's harder to do a small paragraph, but that would be like the case for the footer, like a small paragraph about Lumenrose, so that people can very quickly read and like get the message across. And also I feel like it could be a nice way to have maybe repeat again the categories. It could just be text, like categories of your shop, just to offer another way for people to continue shopping, or even like just repeat the whole menu that you have on top here. Because these, even though I'm going to talk about this a little bit further, in general, this feels a bit more like just like technical things for people to know about, and the way that they're laid out, like I'm not really interested in reading them because like it's a huge menu, but maybe highlight your top menu again here, or the categories of your shop, because like the footer is oftentimes undervalued, and it's a really important place on the pages, because when people land on your footer, it means that they've seen everything you had to show on that page and they weren't interested enough in anything in particular to click and go to another page. But also they have gone to the entire page until they hit the footer, so there is some interest in that they are want to engage with your brand. So the footer is a great place for you to give people options on how to continue navigating on the website. And so you could have just like the categories of your product, or repeat the menu that you have on top. That would be my advice. And also it could be interesting to have your location here, even if here next to this or somewhere, just have your location. At least for me, that's the first thing that I look for when I go on a shop, when I'm like buying a physical product, because I want to know is like, is this like across the ocean for me, or is it like right here and it's going to be easier for me to purchase? So I think the location for me would be important as a user, because it is a physical product. I feel like overall on the homepage you could explore your ethos a bit more, and as I went to the bottom of the page here, I was going through to see if there were any important pages here for me to review, and I saw like, organizations and sustainability, and I was like, okay, these are really important pages that shouldn't be in a place where it's like, this is a secondary menu where you're just gonna look here if you want to see how much I charge for return, like what's a return policy, because this is like the type of information that it looks like. But sustainability and the organizations that you support, they are really important, and I think they should be highlighted somewhere in the homepage, as I've talked earlier. And I think they should also be maybe in the about page. So maybe this about could be like a drop down, like you have here, shop. Have a drop down with maybe like the story, which is your actual about page, and then one for the sustainability, and then organizations that you support. So that's highlighted, because that's part of the ethos of your brand. So that should be like in the big main menu for people to not miss it. And taking that into consideration, I'm just going to dive into these two, because I think it's really cool that you support these brands. And again, I think this is something, because the ethos behind your brand is really important, that we should really like dive into this information a bit more. And to make this a bit more interesting, the first thing I would do is to revise this text. Like, this feels very formal. And I would love to see more of your perspective on why it matters for you to support organizations. And I know that to you might feel obvious, but to me, that I don't know you and I don't know what your brand stands for, I want to know the things that are obvious to you, because that's not obvious to everyone. So a lot of times on our websites, we need to really state the obvious, because people don't know us, and that might feel a little bit like cringy, but it's really important, especially with all of the things that your brand stands for and the activities that goes behind that. So I would write something a bit more informal, like from the heart, why this matters, why you do this. And then for each organization, which I think would be nice for you to highlight each one, like really value the effort and that you put into this. And also could be a nice way to help the message come across about this organizations, and that people could also support, because as people get to know your brand and start trusting you more, they'll trust the things that you support. So this could be a good opportunity both for you to like highlight more the work that you do with these brands, but also highlight the brands on the organizations, but also highlight the organizations so other people can also support them. So I would definitely create an image, highlight the title, to like take an image that they probably have, like Instagram and things like that. All organizations have, like, they unfortunately highly depend on those things. So I have a photo of them, a title, and a description. The description could be really about the organization. I think it should be written from you, so it doesn't feel like super formal, but it could also be something that you take from their website, or ask them, obviously. Or it could be talking about why you care about this, why it matters to you, the relationship that you have with this organization. It could be many things, whatever feels easiest for you to do, to be able to accomplish. But I think highlighting each one would be a great service both for your brand and for these organizations. So that's what I would do. And then maybe have here like the blog section, because your blog is very much about like sharing news and things that you care about and want to talk about. So it feels very aligned with this information. And if people like and care about this, they might want to know about other things that you have done through your blog. So that's what I would do here. And then we go to sustainability. And here in general, I would very much add photos. I feel like this is really important information, and these are things that take a lot of time and energy for you to be able to come through. And I think it would be interesting for you to bring all this information forward visually. So to add photos of nature, textures of nature. So as we're reading this, we can really feel the words through the imagery. Images it really helps us bring ideas to life. So like bringing that copy with an image, I think could do a lot. Another thing is like when the text is centered, it's much harder to read, because as you go through like the end of a sentence, like you're looking for the next one. It's just generally, it's harder to read. I like to use center text, but it needs to be like a couple of lines. When it's like a lot like this, I would definitely like align everything to the left, and also add titles. Because, for example, this information is different from this one, but there's no separation. So I would add titles. And I know this might technically be a title, but it's huge. So it's not really doing the service of a title. That would be to just let people know what this is about. It's too much for me to read to even represent a title. So as I talked about on the homepage, I would definitely start looking at different sections and trying to give them titles, like bigger titles and then maybe smaller ones, to make sure that the information is easier to scan. Like a lot of people from Dux and Poo even can get a discount if they are able to go to events. They might miss this altogether because they don't know that this information is about that. So adding titles, aligning everything to the left, and adding photos that really bring across the message that you're talking about here. And then you could continue either maybe here like talking about your story, as people, as they read this, they might be interested in like, oh, okay, like, let me know more about you. So I would add like a section for people to know your story, which is your current about page. Then let's go to the shop, which is the next one that I saw. Let's go to all because I think it's the same. So I think here, yeah, the first thing I really love was the photo swap. I really love that's like we have the product and then the photo swap is always what would be like a lifestyle photo. I don't know, like the really technical names. I think that's it. And I really like how that feels consistent. So as I look through, I know that I'm going to see a lifestyle photo because I feel like this swapping photo is very typical on product websites, but I feel like sometimes they are missed. People don't know what to put, and everything feels very inconsistent, and it doesn't really do us any good. So I think here you do it really perfectly. I can see the product very clearly, and then I can feel inspired with like how that's going to look. So I think I love how you do the image swap. One thing that I feel compelled to change is the background here, because sometimes it doesn't match the photo, like the color of the photo on top. So it just feels a bit disruptive. Like it gives too much attention to this when I really want to be looking at this. I think if you just remove the background and leave everything white, I think that would look better. That's just my opinion. And I think that was it for this. And then the product page. I think I saw this one. I'm not sure. Okay. For the product page, yeah, this is where I felt that like this felt a bit disruptive, because already like the photos and everything, like I can see everything because of this. And I feel it ends up being a bit more disruptive because it's like all over the website is like one centered pop-up once I just close it and like it disappears. So this just ends up taking space from the page. So that's what I wanted to say here. And also that in the description, we could break down the text a little bit more. Like here, like measurements could have like a slightly different, like be bolded maybe. And then have then another like materials, and then have here the material, just to just to make it easier for me to read, because this is a lot of text. If I'm interested in buying the product, I'm definitely going to read the whole thing, but the easier you make it also feels a bit more organized and professional. And I'm feeling a bit cringy, like that word professional, but it just but that's really what I want to say. It does feel a little bit more professional, like thought went into it, and like we're trying to organize information to make it easier for you to read. But overall, I think that's good. Like the photos are very easy to see what's available in here. I think you put like not too many photos, but enough for me to have like a good idea of what that's going to look on me. So, and I saw a couple of other products and I felt the same way. Then you have here, you may also like, and then maybe you can continue here with something about either the blog posts or made for people to read about you in case they land directly on a product coming from a suggestion from someone else on social media or something like that. They could like, you could talk here about the ethos, either move people to the sustainability page or your story page, just for people to know like there's a lot going on behind these products, and highlight that in case people just landed here. And then let's go to the blog, which is up. Okay, so I could see as I was going through the blog, I'm like, this blog looks different, because like we're used to blogs now being more educational, and I feel like your blog concept is a bit more of like what it used to be, where people just like share news, and sometimes like a really short things like, hey, so this happened. And we stopped doing that in blogs and started doing that with social media. And I, at first, when I saw your blog, I was like, this feels strange. Like, what's going on here? Like, but then after I was like, oh, I really like this idea of you just like, this is not about like this really super thought out educational, like it's just really you sharing things, which I feel like is very on brand with the type of artist that you want to bring through. I think I might be assuming, but what I would say is that I would love for it to have a title. So definitely use like blog, but like blog to be like a smaller title, and then have another, like the actual title of it to be something different that is a little bit more on the lines of this concept where you're sharing news and bits of information and inspiration. This is not like a typical educational blog. What came to me would be like in the life of Lumenrose, but I am not great with copy, so I wouldn't take this one. But just like as an example, to have like a title for this whole section of that could come through, like why are you sharing this? I hope you can, because like there's like drums on the street, because like it's festivity month where I live. So, but I hope you're able to hear me and not the drums. So that was it that I wanted to share. I think having a title will make this whole concept feel fun, and instead of having like this strange feeling as I did in the beginning that I'm like, oh, actually I like it. I think having a title that would already bring me into the zone of what it is that you're doing here would make it a lot more compelling and interesting. And then there was this page, the gallery. Oh wait, no, and I still have stuff inside the blog. Okay, I think it was this one that I saw. Yeah, it was like generally a lot of the blog posts that I saw. There was two things. Was that there's no titles, so like again, it's very unlikely that I'm going to be reading this whole thing to even know if I want to be reading about this. So definitely break things down in titles. You can bold them, bold text, anything like that, just to make it easier for me to be able to read those bits and then like, okay, this information is interesting. I'm going to read it. Because otherwise, this might be really interesting information, but I'm not going to read it because I need to read this whole thing to even know if it's worth it for me. So definitely separate text as much as possible with titles, bolding things, whatever, and also put images alongside text, because scrolling through images, first I can't see this image as a whole, so I'm just seeing like bits of it, and then it's a lot of scrolling for just a lifestyle image. It's not really adding to the content, it's supporting the text, but it's not adding to it, so it just feels like a lot. And it feels accidental. Like even this necklace, I can't see the whole necklace like this. So it just feels like accidental. Like you're not really sure how to put images on a blog, and like it's better than nothing. So it doesn't feel very curated in that sense. So that's what I would do here. But I love the length of the blog. I think if separated with titles would be amazing, because sometimes you have like shorter ones, but you don't have like those massive, huge blog posts that we can definitely tell that it's for SEO purposes to make sure they show up on Google first. Because like, like the typical, like I'm sharing a recipe, but before I'm going to talk about like how my Nana gave me the recipe when I was 10 years old. So anyways, it really feels like the whole text is just coming from you. And this is really why you want to share. You're not adding a lot of fluff to make it bigger. So I love the size of it. I just feel like if you added more titles, it would be even more interesting to read, because it's an easy read. I just need to know if it's an easy read that I want to read before I read it. Anyways, that was it. And then the gallery. So the gallery, I think this was the only page that I was a bit confused about. I wasn't really sure what this was for. I don't know if this is supposed to represent like the collection page that a lot of like brands have. I don't think I've seen that on jewelry brands, but the way it came across to me is I thought, I don't know if this was your way to share your jewelry without it being just on product pages so that people could get more into like the aesthetic of it. Um, but I feel like this is something that you could do throughout the other pages of the website, like throughout the homepage. You could use these different photos without them being attached to a product, which is where you already are a little bit, but you could dive deeper. Your about page as well, even the sustainability, you could show. So yeah, I don't know if maybe there was a different purpose for this, but to me, as a viewer, a potential just buyer of a product, this page feels a bit purposeless. I'm not really sure why it's here, and especially because it's in the main menu. So like this is like real estate space. So what goes in here is stuff that's important for people to see. And because it's in here, I was like, why is this here? But maybe there's a different purpose for it that I don't know. Maybe it's working with retailers. So I was like, I'm going to leave that out. Also because there's not a lot to comment. It's just photos. Now we go to the about. I think I've said that it would be nice to have a drop down. Yeah, I did already mention that. So I love that you share about yourself because like a lot of times I go to the about pages of brands that they really care about their brand values, but then there's like nothing. And I really love that we go through and like you talk a bit more. I would love if you would talk even further, but I'm like, this is enough if this is what you want to talk about. Because here you go through a lot of more technical aspects of your work. I feel like it could be interesting to show this first with the title. Again, titles. I think if there's one thing to add to your whole website would be titles. That would be like my number one priority. Because otherwise I'm like, what are you talking about? The photo does help. I have to say that. It helps from you like, this has something to do with sustainability, I feel. But still like a nice title would be like even better. So I would put this section first with the title and then maybe add your bio. So then like we start with like, this is a really interesting piece of content for your audience probably, and people who relate to your ethos. So it'd be like a really nice way to like get them into like the world of the work behind the scenes, and then talk about yourself. I think it would be nicer to like say some, because I think you go directly to technicality and not so much about like your own philosophy, your own way to see yourself as an artist and why you do this and why you care about this. So like coming from more from the heart than a resume, maybe, which is not a resume, obviously, but it feels a bit more technical information. But anyway, if this is what I want to talk about, I'm like, this is good. So I would go with this one first, then this one, and then this one, which is where I feel like it's really beautiful. After you hear about the human being and see the face of the human being, then like the community side of things. So that's how I would just like lay them out differently. And then here in your bio, it could be nice to have, I love that it's a photo of you and I can see you. Maybe 2 photos. I don't know if there's a way that you could break this information down, like maybe one section with one photo of you and this text and another section with this text, and because you start talking about like the materials that you use and things like that, and you could have a different photo here of you working, because I think it could be really nice to see you work, especially because your studio, it probably feels like very nature-like, so that could be interesting just to like put a face to the artist, so like actually seeing you work in your artistry. That would be nice. And I would also finish this section with the blog section like you have in the homepage, so that if people like seeing this information, they can dive deeper into the blog and see more about it. But probably before that, I would have like a section probably similar to what we would add in the homepage about the sustainability aspect and the organizations you support. So to make sure that that's also here so people can continue their journey about Lumenrose. And then once you get those 2 sustainability and organization sections, I would add the blog post, because that's where people can dive even more into this subject. So I think that was it for the website. I just didn't talk about the contact page because I just feel like, okay, you talk even like that sometimes you take custom projects, so it's a way for people to feel like, I would like one. I'm glad that's a possibility. But one thing I do wanted to add, like overall, because you mentioned that one of your goals would be to maybe eventually, so I remember it wasn't like in an immediate future, but eventually get into more um, working with more retailers. It could be interesting for you to have a page dedicated for that, even if that page lived here. And in that page, you could even, I think maybe you have your location. Oh, I actually didn't think about that. Okay, it could even be in this one, but instead of locations, could be retailers or stockists. Like it could be instead of just locate, because locations, it feels like it's an information for me as someone who's buying, is like retailers or stockists feels more like an information for the retailers. So you could like lay them out like this, great, and then have maybe a form like you have in the contact form, and like with the title and description where you direct it to retailers of like that you're happy to. I mean, you could work with whoever type of retailers that you want to work with, whatever values you assign them with, and just to prompt them to fill out the form so they can start the conversation of having you in their stores. Since that is one of your goals, it would be interesting to have a place on your website where you let people know that that's something that you're interested in. Because if you don't tell people, they might consider that it's not something they're interested in. Even though you do have the location, so I think it's already there. But having the form, I feel like it just gives the people a really easy action to get in touch with it for that purpose. So that was it. I hope this was clear. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to be here to answer anything that you need. And yeah, it was really lovely to see your website and go through your photos and read all about your brand. Thank you, Erika. Ciao.